always. Except with a silver bullet.
The Mad Monster from 1942 was an entertaining and very silly monster movie starring George Zucco as a maniacal mad scientist who has developed a wolfman-style formula, and he plans to use this to seek revenge against some scientists who thought that he was crazy. Oh, he'll show them all right. And honestly, I was in the mood for something a little sillier this week, and also in the public domain, because after spending a few hours putting together my last review for Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, uploading it, and immediately having it blocked by YouTube, by Warner Brothers, for using some brief 5-second clips from the movie, and then going through all the appeal steps, since, it's a review, it's fair usage, I needed something more mild this week, and also something in the public domain. And I really doubt that the producer of this film, PRC, is going to hit me with a copyright claim for this review, so I'm going to go ahead with something a little bit lighter this week. So this is The Mad Monster from 1942. Film opens up with our old friend George Zucco in a lab, and he's treating a wounded wolf. I've seen him in a number of monster films before, namely as the high priest in some of the Universal monster mummy movies like The Mummy's Hand, and also as the mad scientist in the film The Mad Ghoul. He's great here as this crazy scientist, and he plays the role with lots of gusto, including the crazy laugh. It's all fun. So he plays a character, Dr. Lorenzo Cameron, and he's doing his experiments in a lab with all the bubbling beakers and so on, typical mad scientist stuff. And he's got this massive gardener guy, Petro, who's played by actor Glenn Strange. And I caught him in House of Dracula a while ago. He played the Frankenstein monster. He's got sort of a Lon Chaney Jr. look to him here in the film. And well, the doctor gives him a shot, and he goes through the slow phase of transformation into a wolfman-looking creature. So as he is there, bound up and growling, Dr. Cameron has this lengthy discussion with some imaginary scientists that only he himself sees, sitting around a table. It's a little weird, but he's a mad scientist, so he needs to do stuff like this.
That you scoffed at.
You can't intimidate us with fantastic threats.
You're a faker, Cameron, a mad faker.
We'll have you ostracized by every scientist in the country.
There are institutions for madmen, and we'll see that you're confined in one.
But, to be fair, it's kind of a cool sequence, like he's talking to ghosts or something as they sit around this table. But even the ghosts think that he's crazy. Well, he scoffs at these phantoms, and soon Petro reverts back to human, and Dr. Cameron sends him home. And Dr. Cameron goes to meet with his daughter, Lenora, played by the lovely actress Anne Nagel, who is concerned about the strange going-ons lately. And the next day she goes to talk to Petro, who, as a character, is basically like watching Lenny from Of Mice and Men. He's this big, brawny guy, but not terribly smart. He's kind of a nice, innocent character. Well, she inquires about her father's activities, and he shares a little, but he starts to clam up when he sees Dr. Cameron approach. Well, the doctor has more experiments he needs Petro for, and he's back to the lab. And soon enough, he's back into monster mode, and I can't help but find the big monster that he turns into, wearing the comfortable coveralls, just a little bit silly when he first makes his transformation, but it's all fun. And soon he's off into the night, and a kindly old farmer sees him and takes a shot. But apparently the monster is bulletproof, and after terrorizing a family by opening a window and killing a kid, I mean, it takes place off-screen, of course, he returns back to his home where Dr. Cameron, with a whip, orders him to lay back down, where he returns to his normal form again. Now the doctor is ready to bring Petro to the city to unleash revenge on those scientists who had made fun of him. Now out in this swamp area, a mob has started to form. They're all looking for the monster. Now, they haven't found it yet. And Dr. Cameron finds out that they're looking. He acts all curious and innocent about it, but his daughter just looks at him suspiciously. So we jump over to the character, Dr. Blaine, played by actor Robert Strange, who I've seen in other films before, like High Sierra. He's in his office, and he's visited by this cheerful reporter character, Tom Gregory, played by actor Johnny Downs. And he wants a scoop on this monster down in the swamp country, but Dr. Blaine has nothing for him. So soon Dr. Cameron arrives in the city with Petro to give his old doctor friend a demonstration. He leaves Petro with the doctor and instructions that he can give him this second shot a little bit later, and that will prove that his experiment works. And Dr. Blaine agrees to this, which is a little weird that he does, but whatever. So Dr. Blaine contacts one of the other professors, Professor Fitzgerald, played by Gordon Demain, about this demonstration, and he's on the way as well. So meanwhile, the hour has come. Dr. Blaine gives Petro his shot, and soon enough, there's a transformation, and he looks just as silly as before.
Come from the house.
Well, Dr. Blaine is doomed, and the other guys arrive, and it's too late. Reporter Tom shows up as well. He sees the crime scene, off screen, of course, no details, and the doctor's been killed, and they want to find out what's going on. So back home again, Petro is starting to act funny. He listens to a wolf howling outside, and then he creeps up on Lenora, then sort of snaps out of it. Swamp fever, he says. So something's starting to go wrong here. Dr. Cameron shows up and orders him to go back to his room and starts to lecture her on science and stuff like that. Things that mad scientists have to do in films like this. Petro, meanwhile, leaves his room and just heads out into the night. So it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, basically. The transformations are now a permanent thing that don't require the medication. Now, reporter Tom arrives, and he's snooping around this house. And he has a meeting with Dr. Cameron. It's kind of cold, but Lenora's very happy to see him. I think the two of them have a romance, I guess. Dr. Cameron seems annoyed by this reporter, but Lenora sticks up for him. Now Tom leaves and goes snooping around and gets lost. And while doing so, he finds the family from earlier in the film, the one that the monster had attacked. And he gets a little more background on what's going on. And they let him stay there for the night. Now the monster returns back home, and Dr. Cameron orders him to sit back down on his cot so he can medicate him back to his human form again. So the next day, reporter Tom is back to asking questions. Lenora seems upset that Tom is suspicious of her dad, but the doctor seems to be acting more nicely to Tom. Is it all an act? Well, as things get near an end, and as these professors continue to die, and as this mob continues to seek out the monster, what will happen? Will this mad monster continue his streak of terror? Can Dr. Cameron bring the monster under control? Well, you'll have to watch this one for yourself to find out and see the exciting ending for yourself. So some quick closing thoughts. Look, not every film is going to be Citizen Kane, and admittedly, this was a silly movie and very basic monster formula. But you know what? It was short, it was enjoyable, and it does make some fun references to other Universal classic monster films. You know, elements like the mad scientist in his creepy lab with all the bubbling vials and so on. You know, the wolfman creature that makes the slow transition. A little bit of romance, and even the suspicious gypsy-like old woman. Here, just a country person, but, you know, pretty similar. The one that's so suspicious of the monster being evil and so on. And of course, George Zucco is great here as the mad scientist. You know, as mentioned, I've seen him in a couple other films as well, and he does a great job with the evil expressions and the maniacal laugh. And Glenn Strange was also really good here as the simple gardener that turns into the monstrous creature. And although I laughed at the makeup decisions, I did think he was convincing, namely as he has that huge build for a role like this. I think he's nearly 6'5". And in a weird way, it kind of reminded me almost of the Lawnmower Man, how he's transforming basically, but he's also a gardener, and he wore like the coveralls and everything. So I don't know, maybe it's just me. From what I've read, the shooting required only 2 weeks, and it kind of shows. The sets look good here, namely the kind of steamy, jungle-like sets of the South and, you know, the old mysterious house. The film was released by Studio PRC, which stood for Producers Releasing Corporation, what Wikipedia describes as a poverty row studio, which basically means a small, short-lived B-movie studio. So, and I don't think they are around anymore, so hopefully they will not mind my using little clips of the movie. Fair use for the sake of a review. In any case, the film was directed by Sam Newfield and apparently was also featured in the first season of Mystery Science Theater 3000. I've not actually seen the spoof version of this film, but I'll have to check that out someday. Anyhow, that was The Mad Monster, and if you want a silly bit of monster movie that's not terribly deep, with some fun little nods to other Universal monster films, even though it wasn't a Universal monster film, well, then check this one out for a chuckle or two. It's a fun little film, and it is worth watching.